Hi friends, it's Julie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a pretty big book haul video for you guys. Now I know I said in my last book haul that I wasn't going to be buying any more books this year. Well, that was before I remembered that our half-price books, like all the half-price books in my area, which I live in a really big city, they do a huge sale like every year. And that sale happened like 2 weeks ago, but the sale is huge and all of the books are $2 and under. Like all paperbacks are 50 cents. Like it's just insane. And I bought a lot of books, so I just wanted to share those with you guys. Now to start it off, I have 3 fantasy books, and the first one of those is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. Now you guys know that I love anything witches, and Practical Magic has been one of my favorite movies for forever. Like since I was a little girl. I remember going to the movie theater and seeing it with my mom and my sister. Like I've loved it ever since. But I actually didn't even know that there was a book first, and I just discovered that when I heard Stephanie from That's What She Read talking about this book on her channel. Like, I don't know how I went this long without knowing that it was a book, and so I knew once I heard her talking about that I had to find a copy, and I found a copy at the sale, and I can't wait to read this. Now I have heard that the book and the movie are different. I know that Stephanie still prefers the movie, but still I just want to read it and find out more about these characters. And yeah, I can't wait for this one. And the next I have Sabriel by Garth Nix. Now I believe this is either like middle grade or YA, which is something that I don't read too much of really anymore, but this one is pretty highly rated on Goodreads, especially among other booktubers that I'm friends with. So when I saw this at the sale, I decided to pick it up. I mean, it was only 50 cents. Why not give it a try? I don't know too much about the story though itself, other than that the main character is a female who is really badass, which I like because that is something that you struggle to find in fantasy, you know, like really strong, kick-ass female characters. So whenever I do, I have to read the book. And I believe that she has some sort of like magical ability that has to do with like necromancy or something along those lines. I could be wrong. That's what I think. But yeah, I'm looking forward to finally checking this book out because this is one that Goodreads like always recommends to me. You know, like in those book recommendation things, like based off the books on your shelf or books you've read and things like that. So yeah, hopefully I will enjoy this one. And then wrapping up the fantasy portion, I have Deerskin by Robin McKinley. Now, to be honest, I picked this book up because I had remembered reading somewhere that it was people found it kind of disturbing and dark. And since I bought it, I've discovered that people think that because I believe there's some incest that happens in this book, which is definitely disturbing material, but I'm intrigued, so I want to check it out. And all I really know about this story is that it involves a princess and her mother, the queen, has been dead for a very long time. But before her mom died, she made this agreement with the king that he wouldn't marry another woman unless she was as beautiful as she was, because I believe the queen was like the most beautiful woman like in the land or something along those lines. Well, as their daughter is growing older and coming of age, she is like the spitting image of her mother. So I believe the father wants to marry her, and so that's where like the incest thing comes in, but then I believe the princess runs away. And yeah, that's all I know. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued whenever somebody says something that's kind of disturbing. So we'll see. If you have read this, please leave me a comment down below, because this is one that I've never really heard anybody talk about on Booktube. So we shall see. I mean, I'm sure somebody has read it and talked about it, but I've never found that. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it's good. I also picked up one historical fiction book while I was at the sale, and that was A Name of Her Own by Jane Kirkpatrick. Now, historical fiction isn't a genre that I reach for very often because I have a really hard time finding books set in the time period that I like to read about, because I don't really like to read about World War II and things like that. I really enjoy things set in like the early 1800s in America. I read 1000 White Women like a couple years ago and just absolutely loved it, and so I've been looking for other books set in this time period. If you have any, you know, please leave those down below because I'm always looking, but this book just sounds so good. So it's about this woman named Marie, and she's living with her husband and their children in St. Louis, and her husband decides that he is going to make the journey west to try and build a new life for them somewhere, and he tells Marie that he wants her to stay home and take care of the kids. And she's just not okay doing that. Like she wants to go on this journey with him and experience all these things with him. She doesn't care if it's dangerous, yada yada yada. and they meet along the way like Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea and things like that. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Sorry if I didn't say that right. But this is based on a true story, and I find everything about this time period so incredibly fascinating. And now moving on to the thrillers. This first one is one you might have seen in my fall TBR video, and that is Heartsick by Chelsea Cain. Now, since I posted that video, I've gotten kind of mixed reviews on this book. I have a few friends that said they tried this and couldn't get into it. I had a few other people say that they read the whole series, which I just discovered that it was a series, and they really enjoyed it. So I'm really interested in seeing if I enjoy it or not. So we'll see. I will definitely be reading this one probably pretty soon, hopefully in the next few months. But this is a book about a detective who was hunting this like female serial killer for like a really long time, and eventually she finds him and she takes him and kidnaps him and like tortures him for a week, and then decides to let him go and turn herself in. So she is now in prison, and the detective, like his life is kind of like all spiraling out of control. And then he gets thrown in on this new serial killer case. So I'm thinking he's going to ask, you know, this woman kind of for help in solving this case or something along those lines. And I think he might be a little bit in love with her. I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of getting those vibes. So I will see when I read it, but it sounds really interesting, and I'm just excited to see if I enjoy it or not. And up next, I have Stolen by Lucy Christopher. Now, I believe this is a YA book. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's YA, even though it was in the adult section of the sale. And it just says in here, it says, written as a letter from a victim to her captor, this is Gemma's desperate story of survival. Ty has stolen her body. Against every instinct screaming inside her, will he also steal Gemma's heart? So I don't know if this is another book where there's like a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome. I'm not really sure, so we will see. And then next is a book by another author that I've been really wanting to check out, and that is Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. Now, everyone has been talking about Dennis Lehane recently because he had that new book came out that was what? Since We Fell, I believe is what it's called. And I know that April from Getting Hooga With It, she's been reading some of his books and she really loves his writing style. So I'm really excited to check it out. And this was the only one I could find at the sale. I know this is older because they made this into a movie like years ago, I believe. But I found it in this awesome, it's signed and it has wonderful like deckled edges. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to this and seeing if I enjoy his writing as much as everyone else seems to. But it was really funny because when I went to check out and buy all my books, the lady who was scanning my books like looks down and she's like, "That's signed?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I found it in a box under the table." And she's like, "I don't think that was supposed to be at the sale." And I'm like, "Well, too bad because it's mine now." So yeah, I don't think that this was supposed to be sold at the sale for like $2, but whatever, it's mine now. And then finally, the last thriller that I have on this list is Out by So Kirino. And this is a Japanese thriller. I believe it says it won the Grand Prix for crime fiction in Japan. And this is another one that's been pretty highly reviewed by other booktubers. But this book is about this woman who ends up murdering her abusive husband, and then all of her coworkers, I believe, help her get rid of the body, and then other bad stuff starts happening. That's all I really know about it. I haven't really read any Japanese fiction. I read some Korean fiction earlier this year and really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to checking this out, and then maybe I will check out more, more Japanese fiction in the future if I enjoy it. And now moving on to horror. The first book is one that you would have also saw if you watched my TBR video, and that is Growth by Jeff Jacobson. Now, I got this book when I went to meet up with some other booktubers in Chicago, which was fantastic. Of course, we went book shopping, and I found this, and it's written by a local Chicago author, and it just sounded just absolutely terrifying. So in short, this is a book about this genetically modified pesticide that was put onto corn, and then when people ate the corn, it made this fungus start growing inside their bodies, which ended up eating them from the inside out, and just sounds just absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I'm so excited to read this. I think I'm going to start this as soon as I finish the thriller that I'm reading right now, because I really want to check this out. This book I've never heard anything about. It only has a couple hundred reviews on Goodreads, so I'm really excited to read it, and then I can let all of you guys know if I enjoyed it, and if I do, then you guys can go out and read this book and support a support a smaller author. Also, I'm excited about it because he's written at least one other book. So if I enjoy this, then I have another book to check out. And then also while I was in Chicago, I picked up I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. Now this is like a classic horror novel. I'm sure you have heard of it or seen the movie because it was a very popular movie, I believe, with Will Smith. Anyway, I have heard that the book and the movie are very different. And this book is about this man who is like the last living man on earth. Everyone is now a vampire other than him, and he is trying to survive. And so that's it. That's all I know. But I know that a lot of people really, really love this book. And yeah, I can't wait to read it. And then finally for horror, I have Psychos by Robert Blocks. And this is a horror like short story collection, which I have been looking for a horror short story collection for a while. I just feel like this would be perfect for me for those times that I'm reading like big fantasies, but I just really need like a scary horror like thriller fix. And so I found this at the sale and I'm really excited about it. It has pretty good reviews. All of the stories are written by other authors. Like one of them right here is like Richard Matheson, which I just mentioned. So yeah, I've heard good things, at least online, about this, and I can't wait to check it out. And then the last 3 books I have are all nonfiction, and the first one is some true crime, and that is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Brent, not sure how to pronounce his last name, but this is such a popular like true crime book, and to be honest, I don't know too much about it other than it's about, I believe, a murder that happens in Savannah in the early 1980s. That's really all I know, but a lot of people really enjoy this, and I haven't read any true crime in a long time, and I used to love true crime, so I can't wait to get to this one. And then the other 2 I have are all about forensic science, and one of those is just a history of forensic science by Nigel McCreary. It's called Silent Witnesses, and I love like forensic science. I used to want to be a forensic scientist ever since CSI, growing up as a kid. I was one of those kids that, maybe everybody does this, but I fell in love with TV shows, and then whatever like the main character was, like I wanted to be that. So I wanted to be a lawyer because of Ally McBeal. I wanted to be a forensic scientist because of CSI. I wanted to be a witch because of Charmed. You know, you just know, that's just how it goes. And so when I found this at the sale, I knew I wanted to pick it up and read about it because it sounded really interesting. But this next one, I think I'm even more excited about than that other one, and that is The Poisoners Handbook by Deborah Blum, Murder and the Birth of Forensic Medicine in Jazz Age New York. That just sounds fascinating. I was reading like the little inner flap, and it says that when Charles Norris became the chief medical examiner in 1918, it says the poison game changed forever. It says, together with toxicologist Alexander Gettler, Norris set the justice system on fire with his trailblazing scientific detective work and established the discipline of forensics. And so I guess during this time period, poison was a very common way of killing somebody because it really wasn't traceable until this guy came along. So that just sounds really, really fascinating. And yeah, I hope I get to this one really soon because I think it sounds so cool. But those are all the books that I got at the sale and a couple that I got while I was in Chicago. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them because I would love to know. But I think that's it for the day, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all again very soon. Happy reading. Bye.